Moving on now, Nigeria's Federation Account Allocation Committee from January to August gave the following to different regions in Nigeria: 1.27 trillion naira to the south-south, 751.25 billion naira to the northwest, 683.28 billion naira to the southwest, 595.93 billion naira to the north-central part of Nigeria, 501.21 billion naira to the northeast, while the southeast got 425.14 billion naira. Now, the FAAC, that is the FAAC, also put the Multidimensional Poverty Index per zone at 45.49 million for the northwest, 20.47 million for the northeast, 20.19 million for north central, 19.66 million for south-south, 16.27 million for southwest, and 10.85 million for the southeast. And that is what we have in terms of statistics as regards some allocations to regions and the poverty index in these areas. Now, to join me on this discussion is Alesta Wilcox. He's an economist and an African affairs analyst. Alexa, nice to have you talk to us at this time.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Well, I believe you heard the rollout of what has been allocated to regions in Nigeria in the last few times. We're talking about in the last, between January and August specifically, and the poverty index that is said to be on the rise in these regions in Nigeria. Now, how does the allocation of funds by the FAAC correspond with the poverty index that we have seen? It is called the Multidimensional Poverty Index across the different regions in Nigeria. Are there any discrepancies or discernible patterns that you have noticed that may not be at parity with what is being expended compared to what we see?
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for this very important this is a very important topic that you have brought to fore. First and foremost, this is the first time I'm being called upon to discuss the states, which I have always complained about, are always neglected, and every time when we discuss economic matters, we are looking at the federal government. I can even see from your last discussion, while we are talking about Lagos, your guest was busy talking about the federal government, which for me is what has created this the rise in the multidimensional poverty, because we all focus our attention as to what is happening in Abuja, the federal government, forgetting the fact that the states are the ones that are closest to you, that are supposed to address most of the issues we think the federal government will address. They address at the states. Poverty eradication, poverty issues, provision of amenities, facilities, education, health, they are all domiciled in the states. And so when we do not challenge the states, we are always putting attention to the federal government, and the federal government can do little or nothing in those areas, and then I'll begin to get it wrong. I'm not surprised that we have this kind of statistics, because for a long time, we've allowed the states to run haywire with whatever resources that are allocated to them. Nobody cares. Nobody has cared. Even those in the media, the journalists, the houses, the media houses, they've not cared to interrogate the states as to what are they receiving and what are this money being expended on. What are their focal points? What is their budget trust? Every state has a budget, but what is the budget trust? At the end of the day, how is their budget implemented? In what areas are they being assessed? So when this is not done, and because the state governors and the regions know fully well that there will always be attention shifted not on them, but to the federal government, that is the big brother. So they just mismanage what they have, do whatever they can do. Nobody's accountable to anybody, and you keep having multiplicity of problems being piled up, and nobody's addressing them.
Now,
so
Alesta,
this is a very important statistic that has been rolled out, and it's a very important editorial opinion or editorial conclusion by your own media house.
Now, Alesta, you are saying that you would have expected that the media and citizens and every other person in concern should have questioned the state governments in terms of the expenditure and what they allocate their funds to, what they spend their money on. But of course, you will still remember in what happened in Ogun State and in some other northern part of Africa, where some certain people have questioned the government in that light, and in one way or the other, they are being victimized and they are being attacked, certainly using state arms or using state powers. Of course, in Ogun State, you remember a particular situation where a local government stakeholder questioned the government as regards some certain allocations, and we know what transpired. So when we begin to have a repercussion in that light, how would you expect people to continue to question the government?
Thank you for bringing that very, very clearly. And that shows you the dysfunctionality of our federation. That shows you how tolerant the federal government is as against the state government. Now, what are the instruments of state used by state governors to harass and intimidate? It's still the structure of the federal government, which is the police and other security agencies. And because of this, a lot of people, look, if you cannot fight this fight by individual, it has to be the system, the media houses. Now, the case of Ogun State you mentioned, how many times was it, to what extent was it given prominence in the media space? How many times were we called as public analysts to discuss that matter? Because everybody chooses to ignore the state, and so if one person raises up his head, he'll be victimized. But if the structure of our governance, of our media projection, put such light on the state, because let me tell you for free, you keep shouting about healthcare delivery in the country, you keep shouting about education, the federal government can do little or nothing, because the federal government does not run general hospitals or maternity hospitals. These are run by the states.
Now, Alesta.
If you're talking about education, I'm coming, sir. Because these are part of what creates this poverty we are seeing. If you're talking about education, federal government only run universities. Not secondary schools and primary schools are run by the states and local government. So, but when we are discussing these issues, we don't call the state governors and local government to account. Everybody is talking about the federal government, and the federal government cannot invest directly in primary education, in secondary education. They can only invest in their universities and maybe secondary schools in Abuja and maybe the ones in the university campuses. So we must be able to understand the fact that it is time for us to put searchlight on the states. A lot of allocations go to the state. Now, what you are seeing is the allocation from FAAC. We've not added the IGRO. Of course, you know that Lagos IGRO per every year is bigger than whatever the entire country, the entire state, the entire country will make without in terms of FAAC. Lagos IGRO alone is bigger. So we've not added IGRO to tell you the amount of resources that are available in the state. Because when you're talking about food production, it should be the state, at the state level. Talking about education, it should be the state. Talking about health, it should be the state. These are the people that are directly involved.
Okay, Alesta. Yes, I understand. Alesta, let's quickly move forward because we are pressed for time. Now, when we talk about this multidimensional poverty index and whatnot, now, how do you think, of course, you have talked about accountability, and we see a prevalence of course, the ascendancy of poverty in the northern part, but then we want to tie everything together. How do you think these funds that are being allocated would benefit the people, the masses, those in the states? In what areas would you expect these funds to be channeled to see that there's economic growth, there's welfareism, there is well-being for the citizens of the state, and we see transformation of these states? What areas?
Well, let me say this. You discover that by the statistics, you have more in the Northwest. Of course, Northwest has the largest population in the country and have one of the least productive economy, which unfortunately is supposed to be the other way around, because the agricultural potential of the country relies more in the north. But how are these things managed? We are having a problem, a challenge of population. By the time your population keeps growing, no matter what resources government is putting in, it will just be like a cup of water in that ocean. So we must check population growth. So even where government is investing in education, investing in healthcare, investing in welfare programs, investing in agriculture. If the population is not tamed, it will just be, water being drawn into the ocean, it will be consumed. Nigeria is having a major challenge, and that is population, and we're not addressing it. So long as our population keep growing geometrically, I'm sure when the Economist talked about population growth and food production, Nigeria, I'm sure he has Nigeria in mind. So these are the areas we must address. But if we don't address it, years to come, the ascendancy of poverty will have stripped whatever resources. We are seeing it looks big, but when you share it among the states and compared to the population that the government and the government has to take care of, excluding all the ones that they are corruptly enriching themselves, the mismanagement, we discover that we have a long way to go, and I tell you, it's a very, very grim picture.
Alesta Wilcox, thank you so much for your time on the news.
Thank you for having me. It's always my pleasure.